Welcome to the Configure Price Quote Podcast. My name is Frank Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. Today, my guest is Nikhil Muralitharan, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Chargebee. Nikhil leads the go-to market for Chargebee's modern CPQ platform, turning product stories into pipeline and revenue. I'm excited to explore Chargebee's CPQ solution with him and to learn more about Nikhil during our conversation today. Nikhil, welcome to the CPQ Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Frank. I've been a listener for quite a while, and so it's great to be invited here.
I'm very excited to have you, Nikhil. Let's start by telling me a little bit more about yourself and what you did before you joined Chargebee.
So I started out as a software engineer. I worked for about 2.5 years on Sybase, building commission dashboards for traders at investment banks. And maybe seeing the money that they were making inspired me to do an MBA. And so I did an MBA in marketing and communications, which then pulled me into the SaaS and the go-to-market side of the world. I stumbled upon product marketing because it seemed the right fit for me. I had an engineering background, and then it let me combine my love for storytelling and selling software with my engineering background. And so I've been a product marketer for a decade and some, and have had the chance and the privilege to build and launch products across customer support, billing, supply chain, mobile app analytics, and right now, Chargebee CPQ.
Excellent. And I think in preparation for this meeting, I wrote down a question over here, right? So you mentioned that you learn a lot from movie storytelling, right? Especially the classic summer blockbusters. And if your own career would be made into a movie, what would be the title of it and what would be the defining scene?
If my career were a movie, I think I would call it Connecting the Dots. It's about this small town guy who, thanks to healthy, peer relationships as a kid or in college and schools, found his way into a job that he loves, finds love along the way, and slowly starts becoming a better version of himself. And the defining scene, probably him sitting alone, thinking how for the longest time, he thought he was only working on what's in front of him, not sure if there's a right path or if there's even a path. And then looking back, you realize that all the missteps, the trials, the detours, the lucky breaks, all of them led somewhere, and that somewhere made him who he is. And the executive producer for this introspective movie is going to be Frank.
And I think Hollywood is waiting for you. Okay, excellent. You said also in preparation for the meeting that marketing rewards curiosity and action more than theoretical smarts, right? So and outside of work, what's something that recently sparked your curiosity and did it lead to somewhere unexpected?
I think we are pretty much living at the peak of technology and in terms of conveniences that we can experience, things that humans few hundred years back wouldn't have probably even dreamt of. But even today, when you and me want to go on a holiday, Frank, we go back to those 10th century buildings and forts and churches with those arches and those paintings, because those buildings probably don't have the modern sense of utility around them, but they were built with imagination and care and love and craftsmanship. And it made me think, we like to make ourselves busy at work. We keep adding 100 things to our checklist and we feel great when we check them off. But sometimes we need to pause and think, is any one of them inspiring? Will someone take a moment, say, wow, that's actually great. That's actually inspiring. That's actually very well done. It's crazy in a good way. Because if you don't do all of that, then even though we've done hundreds of things, it'll look like the modern skyscrapers, functional, but forgettable.
I like that. That's a good point, right? So now you also traveled 4 continents and bring back vinyl records from each place, right? So can you share one record and the story behind it that left a lasting impression on you personally or creatively?
I'll have to clarify that while I do collect vinyl records, I don't necessarily seek out stories. It's usually to sample the local culture or to find a record that I wanted to purchase but couldn't. But it so happened that I picked up a David Bowie vinyl record, Heroes, in Berlin. And it's meaningful because he produced Heroes from few hundred meters away from the wall, right? So that record is very special for me. And when I visit Berlin, right, I can still see the physical scars from the past. And when you walk around, you hear about stories of how books, art, music were destroyed at a certain university. And it pains you that all that happened. And then you go there today and you see tens of pop up stands where students and local folks are selling records and art and books for €1 or two, right? So it almost feels like where there was something that was destroyed, there's this new form of resistance, a new form of a statement being made, which is to say music, art, all of them still matter, all of them still should be shared and distributed as much as we can. So Berlin and David Bowie have a very poignant and a significant impact on me.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Now, my last question before we talk more about Chargebee is, what do you like to do when you don't work?
So I love to travel, and especially to places that have been shaped by time in ways that we can barely wrap our heads around. So the San Andreas fault lines, traveling to Machu Picchu and Vinicunca in Peru, the Grand Canyon in Arizona. There's something about standing in those places that reminds you the world is ancient. We sometimes take ourselves too seriously. We fret about really small things. But when you go there and you stand out there, you realize that no number of productivity apps and meditation apps can match the calmness that those landscapes bring in you, right? And it's a nice way to remind that there are more significant things in life and how little insignificant we are. That it also reminds us humans have done crazy things without modern technology. We build pyramids without anything, and we still panic today if we lose GPS for 5 minutes while navigating our roads, right? So travel frees me. It helps me keep me grounded, and it especially when things get a little loud or too serious.
Hey, very cool. Yeah, I see a lot of people have said that on the show that they really love to travel, right? So and go in lots of different places. Excellent. You going anywhere exciting later this year?
So I might be headed to Yellowstone in 3 weeks from now. So hoping to sample Yellowstone National Park. Yes.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Have fun. Until then, let's talk a little bit more CPQ, right? So, and let's talk about Chargebee's CPQ solution. What can you tell me about that solution? What should listeners know about it?
Yeah. So Chargebee has been around since 2011. And right from the start, we've been focused on helping businesses deal with the messy stuff around billing and subscriptions. And then slowly we expanded into retention, revenue recognition, usage-based pricing. And then CPQ became the natural next step. Because what we found was traditional CPQ systems were not necessarily built for the digital software and services selling. The complexity that these CPQ systems assume are unnecessary in today's world. And at Chargebee, we decided to flip this model, right? So what we thought was, let's prioritize the use cases that truly matter for digital software and services selling and make that 100% of our focus. CPQ should no longer be about complex deal configurations. Instead, it should be what it was originally meant to be, right? It is to enable businesses to sell faster, adapt instantly to market conditions, scale without friction. So that's what we aim to do with Chargebee CPQ.
Excellent. We will talk more about the solution in a minute. Before we do that, let's first clarify who the target audience is for that. What can you tell me about the customers and the industries that you're focusing on?
It's a great question. And to really answer it well, I want to call out a couple of big shifts that we are observing that's deciding and shaping who we build the CPQ for. First, the market today clearly values companies that can launch and successfully scale multiple products. So if you look at HubSpot and Dropbox, both were at 2.4 billion revenue in 2024, right? One of them was valued at 3x, the other was valued at 13x, right? That's the kind of premium market puts on businesses that can scale and win on multiple fronts. Secondly, what we are observing is that the growth timelines are compressing. So with the advent of AI, what's happened is innovation cycles have become faster. Product launches are happening faster than ever before. Tech debt is no longer a scary monster for the product and engineering teams. So all that focus is now shifted to the go-to-market side of the world, right? And now what we are dealing with is we see costs linked to usages. So you have usage-based pricing rearing its heads. You have AI enhanced capabilities that behave more like features than they behave like products. And all the companies across the world, big and small, are trying to figure out how to price and package these AI capabilities. What used to happen is that there used to be a 7-year, 8-year window. We used to call it a moving up market or moving down market, where companies take time to transition, to start selling to enterprises, to start selling multiple products, to upgrade their systems, hire the right people, bring in the right technology and tools, and make the right process changes. We don't have time to do that anymore, right? And what it shows to us is that the humble, ubiquitous quoting engine is at the center of it all. Because what companies need today is the ability to be able to sell multiple products, to be able to price flexibly depending on market changes, to be able to do that without too many back and forth. And all of this attacks the quoting engine at its heart, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why we started to build Chargebee CPQ. Now, who uses Chargebee CPQ today? We have everyone from SaaS to K-12 institutions to consulting firms using it. We have companies from 3 million in revenue to 115 million in revenue who are using Chargebee CPQ and Chargebee quotes. And what they are trying to do here is they're trying to use CPQ to be flexible, to be able to adapt to new pricing models, to be able to do hybrid sales motions, right? They want to be able to do both PLG and sales assisted motions together without having separate tech stacks or separate catalog for both of these motions. So those are the kind of companies that we sell Chargebee CPQ today.
And the focus is mostly on North America or any other regions?
So we do sell to North American companies, but largely we also make sure that we sell to businesses in United Kingdom, Europe, and Australia, New Zealand. So it's North America, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and United Kingdom.
Excellent. And how does Chargebee CPQ improve quoting and deal making for complex subscription models, such as usage-based pricing or tiered subscriptions with add-ons?
So what's happening today is that companies are scaling at scales which were unprecedented a few years back, right? So we see 20 employee, 30 employee companies running 100 million business operations, all while balancing PLG, SLG motions, all while balancing multiple product selling. And that's when we realize that that's the right kind of CPQ system to build out. Right? That's the right kind of companies that we need to build out CPQs for. So what we decided to do was we built a CPQ system that handles complex subscription models right out of the box. So usage-based billing, tiered pricing, multi-year ramps, add-ons. You don't need engineering dependencies or custom code for every deal. You can also bundle your flat fee products with usage-based ones, add in discounts, overrides, have multi-year contracts with price ramps in year 2 or year 3. All of that becomes easy and seamless with Chargebee CPQ. But the most important thing is that because it's connected with billing and revenue recognition systems, code becomes a single source of truth for everyone, from sales to billing ops to rev ops to FinOps, right? And so everything from future amendments to renewals, any changes to the subscription itself, all of them flow downstream automatically. So there's no gap in the knowledge between what sales sold to what was invoiced to the customer to what was provisioned and what was renewed. All of that becomes seamless. So that's how we build Chargebee CPQ.
Got it. Then let's talk a little bit about the architecture of the solution, right? So what can you tell me about it? As a headless solution, an API-first solution, you have a microservice architecture. And also, do your customers really care about this when you sell them the solution?
Yes, so they do, and I'll explain why, right? So at Chargebee, our architecture is API first and modular. So yes, you can call it headless in that aspect, right? But when we built out CPQ, we quickly realized that different kinds of companies expect their CPQ to be tuned a certain way. And we had to make sure that we build a CPQ system that's flexible and extensible to meet our customers midway, right? So if there are customers who are at the beginning of their sales assisted motion maturity, right? So they don't probably have a CPQ yet. Maybe they just have a basic CRM implementation. For them, we built the native Chargebee CPQ application. So everything from quoting to billing is available right out of the box. They don't have to use anything else. Now, let's say a company has already spent money on implementing Salesforce or HubSpot, and they've trained their reps on it. They're rarely going to want to move quoting out of Salesforce or HubSpot, right? So for them, what we've done is we've built a native integration inside Salesforce and HubSpot so that customers can experience all the capabilities of native CPQ, but from within their favorite CRMs. So all of that complexity is handled under the hood. Now, let's say we look at the most complex customer use case, which is some verticalized customer use cases, which are very niche to that particular segment. And let's say they built a custom rule engine or a custom tool, which they are very dependent on, and they are less likely to move over, right? So for them, what we've done is we've built our sales order APIs in a way that we will abstract out Chargebee CPQ and directly connect with the quoting engine that they have, right? So which means they still get the benefits of a connected CPQ, quoting engine, billing and revenue recognition system, and without having to report anything that they already have. So it works for all these types of maturity indexes, right? Like those who are on the beginning or early adopter stage of the sales model, those who already have a CRM in place, and those who are on the extreme end where they already have custom quoting engines. For all three types of these customers, we have a CPQ solution. The interesting thing is, because our system is composable, right? You can define custom objects. You can then tailor workflows. Like you can add a checkout to the code to make sure that PLG processes are handled out of the box. So all of that happens seamlessly without you having to re-architect anything, even when you change things in the future. So that's the advantage of using Chargebee CPQ.
Looking for a fast, reliable way to get up to speed on Configure Price Quote? The CPQ Briefing subscription delivers analyst-grade insight in minutes, no marketing noise, just facts. Right now, you unlock 11 concise briefing documents covering leading CPQ platforms and key add-ons. For more are in final review, and 20-plus additional briefings will roll out by mid-September, so the library keeps growing every week. Each briefing distills capabilities, roadmap signals, and buyer watchouts into a 5-minute read you can act on immediately. Discover how simple CPQ research can be. Visit novicecpq.com/cpq-briefing-subscription and start exploring today. Clear, practical guidance is just a click away.
Excellent. You already mentioned the integration with the CRM systems, right? So what out-of-the-box integrations in general does Chargebee offer at this time?
So we have, as I mentioned, Chargebee works with Salesforce and HubSpot. We also have integrations with the ERP tools like NetSuite, Sage Intacct, Xero, QuickBooks. We also try to make sure that you can move out the data, right, into your Amazon S3 buckets so that you can do analysis on them. And the whole idea is to remove silos. So we try to integrate with as many CRMs and the ERPs and help desks in the world to make sure that all your ops teams are up to date with the same data along with your finance team, so that finance team is looking at the same contract value as your sales teams. We also have 60 plus out of the box integrations as Chargebee overall. So very sure that any integration that our customers are looking for, we've got them all.
Interesting. Now, a big topic for the last 2.5 years has been AI, right? So, and I guess Chargebee probably also have some AI. Tell me a little bit more about that. What do you do now? What are you aiming for? What really makes a measurable difference for your customers?
Correct. So right now, what we have in the Chargebee CPQ world is we have AI-generated code summaries, which means reps can instantly create summaries of their proposals. They can even translate the proposals into the native language for the customers with a single click. and send them across, right? But that's just a start. Our approach to AI is not adding an AI layer on the top and calling it a win, right? It's about designing CPQ for an AI native world. What that means is, while today our buying scenarios are heavily dependent on the humans in the loop, because we are still not comfortable letting agents or AI take decisions autonomously, we understand that future is not going to be the same, right? We are moving towards a world where you will allow AI agents to intervene, to mediate, to recommend newer things, to maybe create better proposals. So what we are looking to build is using CPQ to read call transcripts to auto-generate proposals, right? Because it understands the nuances of what was discussed, what was the customer looking for, what can we handle, right? Or using AI to do guided selling better, right? So because your AI engine knows your product catalog, it understands your buyer constraints, it understands pricing and market constraints. And so it'll probably help us build better deals on the fly. So we are very excited about launching a new version of guided selling later in this year.
Excellent. So when you have a CPQ solution, you have to maintain it, right? So what should your customers know about maintaining that solution, right? So how easy or difficult is that?
So we've experienced this ourselves, right? So when we wanted to create complex workflow rules, we were exploring, okay, how do we bring that into our selling side of the world? And then when we explored this world of CPQ, right, we realized that most companies actually hire one or two administrators whose job it is to actually sit and implement the solution. You need to ask for engineering bandwidth to make sure that the changes that deals require are baked in. And then there are teams purely for running the CPQ maintenance, right? And that's the kind of culture and maintenance logic that doesn't work for Chargebee and the way we build software. So what we wanted to do was, we need to make sure that the power is back in the hands of those who run deal desks and financial approvals and discounting flows and revenue operations. So it's designed for you as a user to simply go log into the site, create whatever rules you want, create whatever workflows you want, and to be able to do that without waiting for someone else, maybe an administrator, maybe an engineering person, to help you out with any of the workflows that you want to set up. Because it's better people can do it themselves, because they are closer to the problem, they're closer to knowing how the process should ideally work.
Excellent. Yeah, it's always better to have the maintenance closer to the user, right? So, but one other thing which is important as well is data security, right? So, especially with the use of AI, what do you do there? For example, do you have an ISO 27001 certification? Any other certifications that are important to note for potential customers?
Correct. So, security is obviously a non-negotiable priority. We are already a PCI DSS level 1 service provider. We are SOC 1 and SOC 2 type 2 certified. We have ISO 27001 certification. And what this means is our systems, controls, processes have been audited by a third party regulator and has been approved or has been agreed that it meets the global compliance standards, right? And so that is already in place for businesses specifically in the healthcare, or those wanting to acquire customers in the European regions. We have HIPAA and GDPR compliances out of the box. So that's sorted. From a data perspective, everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. Use AWS for our infrastructure. So there's baked in protection against DDoS attacks. We've also layered that in with some access controls, pen testing, and monitoring. So security is handled thoroughly. And so whether you're a startup that's looking to scale fast, or you're a public company with regulatory mandates, we have it ready for you.
Excellent. Now let's talk a little bit about the C, the P, and the Q. Let's start with the C, right? The product configurator. So what are some of the highlights from the product configurator, from your point of view?
See, so what we've tried to do is, so we are looking at this from a billing lens, right? So our point of journey to look at CPQs from billing standpoint. What we understood is software companies need a lot of P and Q and then eventually a C, right? As they become complex. So that's what our focus has been. So what we ended up doing is make sure that there is a very solid catalog architecture that makes sure that you don't spawn thousands of SKUs and thousands of add-ons that makes it very hard to manage later on. So the catalog is sorted with plans, add-ons, and SKUs all baked in. We made sure that we worked on the pricing model architecture, which is customers should be able to combine multiple pricing models and bake that into the rule engine. Otherwise, all of this fails, especially in an AI-first world. And then the quoting logic, right? And the quoting logic needed two essential components, the ramps and the approvals, right? Ramps across everything, meaning it can be ramps in terms of licenses, ramps in terms of discounts, ramp up, ramp down, any of these factors, and approvals in terms of can I create pre-approved workflows for approvals, and can I create approval flows for those that exceed a certain limits that have been applied on. So this is how we've approached it, right? So what we want to do is finish out the catalog, finish out all the pricing components, make sure that the quoting engine is rock solid, and then get guided selling and matrix pricing out of the way. So that's been our approach to so we're doing it from Q to P to C, because we are closer to Q than we are closer to C, right? So the approach has been solidify the Q first, hit the P. So we are right now at the P level, and then hopefully we'll get into the configurations.
Okay, makes sense. So then let's talk a little bit about the onboarding and implementation work that's needed. So how does a typical project look like? Tell me, high level, obviously, only.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we observed in the market was that CPQ implementation sometimes takes a couple of quarters, especially the more complex ones. And then we were thinking that given that customers are more likely already implementing Chargebee billing, and that's already a solid implementation time, we shouldn't make CPQ take a lot of time like the rest of the folks in the market, because then that defeats the purpose of launching something different and launching something modern, right? So it's built to be implemented in a week or two, right? And if you're already using billing, Chargebee billing of some sorts, you can go live with it in a couple of days. So that's how we've tweaked it and kept it, right? Now, what do we do during the implementation itself, right? So we have a 6-stage process, right? But I'll keep it light and then explain what we actually do during the implementation without getting into stage by stage course. So what we do is we start by mapping out how the team actually sells the bundles, the usage add-ons, the ramp deals, the approvals, how it usually happens and what actually happens in the selling process. We then separate it out from what is actually in the plan and the product catalog and the product families and all of that, right? Then we explore if a customer is moving on from a legacy system or a homegrown system, right? What we try to do is we prioritize and migrate the active codes first, right? Those that are active codes and contracts, so that the sales momentum doesn't get disrupted, and then slowly migrate out the historical records. And then if you have Salesforce and HubSpot, then there's no problem, because your context is anyway within the CRM. We plug in Chargebee CPQ along with your CRM, and then you immediately start being able to quote right out of your CRM. So this is typically how we do it. And we want to make sure that we do not fall into the bad habits of a traditional CPQ system, right? Like it shouldn't take more than a couple of weeks for software teams to be able to adopt a CPQ system.
Let me ask this. So the way you talk about it, it sounds like Chargebee is doing all the implementations themselves. Is that correct? Or do customers sometimes do the implementation themselves? Do you have work with system integrators? How does it work?
We do all sorts, right? So when we meet customers, we see all kinds of them. Some customers have dedicated implementation engineering teams who have bandwidth to take up all the onus of implementation on them, right? And then we also have in-house engineering folks who can potentially step in and build solutions. But you also have third-party system integrators who do the work on our behalf. I think it just depends on whether a customer is comfortable with doing it themselves. They already have a preferred system integrator in place. Sometimes we have a system integrator relationship in certain regions that are predefined, right? So whatever customers come in, we are able to bring those system integrators in. Sometimes customers prefer if we handle it ourselves completely in-house, right? So then we take it up upon our internal PS&I engineering team, and then have them prioritize something that the customers need. So all of these types of we've seen different types of customers requesting different types of implementation workarounds, and so we want to be able to provide as many as we can.
Perfect. Got it. Now, sounds all very interesting. What's a good opportunity for interested listeners to see the solution? Are there any events that are coming up where they could meet you or the team and learn more about Chargebee CPQ?
Definitely. So if you can head to chargebee.com/CPQ, you'll see our landing page that details of the product. And on that page, you do not have to even give an email ID. You will see there is a demo option. You click on it, you will see ungated demos of how Chargebee's quoting engine works. We've demonstrated 3 typical use cases: creating multi-year ramps, adding multiple products, showing you how discounting approvals workflows work. So all of these things we've covered on our website, ungated. You can test it out yourselves and check it out. So you can look at chargebee.com/CPQ. If you'd like to reach out to me or send a note to me with the subject line, "Frank is your executive producer for your movie," to Nikhil@chargebee.com. So Nikhil@chargebee.com. I'll be happy to respond and make sure that Frank gives his wallet to me.
Excellent. So we will have all this information as always in the show notes. Nikhil, thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
Thank you, Frank, for having me.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com. So long, everyone.